Hey, Jill, how's it going?
Hey, it's going pretty good.
So we're recording this to talk about what it's like being a lead assessor in the CMMC ecosystem, because I think that would be kind of cool educational content. And in particular, what it's like being a lead assessor for Kieri Solutions, because you and I both work for Kieri Solutions.
Right.
And we're doing CMMC assessments right now, pre-assessments, mock assessments, and joint surveillance assessments. So I got some questions for you, Jill.
Yay!
You ready?
Can't wait.
All right. So I guess as a preamble, so I'm Amira Armond. I'm the owner of Kieri Solutions, and I blog on CMMCaudit.org regularly. And Jill, you were a CMMC Provisional Assessor.
Yes.
Right.
Now I'm official.
A certified CMMC assessor now. With the checkbox and the suitability
green thing and yep.
Very good.
Nice.
There's only last time I checked, there was only 40 people that had all the things, all three things.
I had to fight for my check mark. So I was like, where is it? So yeah.
Absolutely. So let me think. So you took training as part of your provisional assessorship directly from the Cyber AB. Was that Mike Snyder that gave you that training?
Yep.
We'll talk a little bit more about training and how that can help. But let's talk about assessments and what that's like for you as a lead assessor. So first off, I noticed that you're not wearing business formal, and neither am I. We at Kieri Solutions we enjoy hats. So
I get in formal dress attire, complete from head to toe, black tie looking stuff.
For the virtual assessments.
Yeah, but I still wear my hat.
And then you don't turn the camera on, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. So from my perspective, I'm involved with a lot of the assessments when we're first talking to the clients and they're saying, we want a mock assessment, we want a pre-assessment, we want a real thing. I'll normally have a call with them or a couple calls explaining what's going on, what they should expect, right? The pros and cons of it. And then at some point they say, let's do it. At which point, Jill gets pulled in, or another lead assessor, of course, but normally it's Jill for Kieri Solutions. So at that point, what are you doing with the client? What's your interaction?
A lot of communication and planning and meetings. So we're scheduling stuff, working on the assessment plan, going over like an evidence plan and stuff, talking about scoping. So yeah, a lot of stuff, but usually, ideally, that's like 5 or 6 weeks out from, the actual assessment.
I see some crossed fingers. So we have had clients that were in a super rush. That, for example, we're told by DIBCAC, congratulations, you're about to get forcefully assessed by the government.
Yep.
And they said, could you please get us on your schedule ASAP? And some of them we can support, some of them we can't, depending on what's already going on. It of course helps if we get more warning than less.
Yeah.
So who do you talk to from the client company, the defense contractor?
They usually have, a point of contact, a main person to talk through everything, all the scheduling and stuff. So it's whoever they decide they want to talk to me.
Is it exclusively like a super technical person, like the chief information security officer?
No, in fact, that's pretty rare. Um, it's somebody that's more maybe project manager kind of stuff. I mean, they may do whatever, but they're kind of a person that does a lot of the planning and on their side pulls in like whoever they need for interviews and things like that. So they don't have to be super technical. They just need to, be able to plan and that kind of thing.
And that's primarily for the logistics
Yeah.
piece, right? Who's going to be where?
Yep.
Do we need to
Doing
travel?
right.
Mhm.
Scheduling on-site stuff, and figuring out when, we'll have an assessor there and who will meet them and that kind of stuff.
Do you get more technical? So for those meetings when you're working through the planning,
Hmm.
which a lot of it is that logistics, right?
Right.
What practice are we going to review which day? Who needs
Day.
to be in the room, right?
Yep.
But there's some more technical pieces to it,
Hmm.
such as scoping,
Scoping.
and then also we need them to provide us certain artifacts,
Right.
certain documents, right? So like the system security plan, the network diagrams, the inventories,
Yep.
which are required as part of scoping according to the scoping guide.
Hmm.
Do you normally talk primarily to that project manager or executive sponsor, and then they basically say, hey, my technical person, you have a task to provide this information to Jill?
Um, Most of the time, uh, that person will get with a more technical person and have them on the call for scoping and things like that. Uh, because they know the environment and what's in it and stuff. But usually the contact person will get with whoever they need to pull in evidence, and hopefully they've done that already, or at least have started. Um, but yeah, they look at the evidence plan, and you know they may have a certain person that is responsible for each practice or whatever, and they make sure that they get all of the evidence together to send it. Um, they either they upload it to our secure share, um, and if it's a joint surveillance, they'll get a link from DibCAC to upload their evidence as well. But yeah, the technical part would be mainly scoping and getting some of the evidence stuff.
Mhm. Um, how long does it normally take? I guess maybe in hours, right? Or the number of meetings to go through that planning process with a assessment client.
I mean, I'd like to do like 5 or so meetings. So hours, I don't know. It usually takes like about 3 weeks maybe to get everything together and go through. so that we all agree on the schedule and that kind of stuff, which seems to be the thing that like takes the longest is for them to get all their people together and for us to make sure that we're doing interviews at a time when people who need to be there can be there. So that's pretty that can be pretty difficult.
Who would have thought that you had to go through all these 20 years of cybersecurity experience and training on interpreting requirements and scoping and all this stuff and trying to get the right people
The
in the right
dang
room
yep.
is the hard
Schedule.
part.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Um, so does your C3PAO, don't say anything bad about Kieri, does your C3PAO provide structure for the assessment process?
Yeah, it's our structure is makes things a lot easier. Um, it's I kind of know what to do, what order things are. We've gotten it worked out pretty well um to where, if it was somebody else doing it for us that had never done it before, I think, they would be like, ah, because it already is basically, um, there's a process. So that takes a lot of stress off of us, me, and I think that takes a lot of stress off the client as well, because we're coming in and we're like, okay, this is what we're doing, um, and they feel comfortable that we know what we're doing. So,
Mhm.
yep.
So before you started working with Kieri, you were a provisional assessor for probably a year or something like that.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of people out there, especially the ones that are experienced with the CMMI
Hmm.
ecosystem, where they kind of expect they don't know why a C3PO exists. They expect the lead assessors to be rolling around with a full set of templates, a full set of procedures. They do
Right.
their own everything, right? And so there's a question of, why do we even have a C3PAO, which is that technical management and organization
Hmm.
that employs the lead assessors and the assessment team. So the question is, before you met Kieri Solutions, did you have a full set of assessment templates
No.
and briefs and reports that you felt like you wanted to use with a customer? Do you think
No.
most provisional assessors were running around with those?
No.
That's my experience too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's why we made our own for the organization. Yeah, yeah. I was a provisional assessor too. I'm now a certified CMMC assessor. And we were given some templates during the provisional assessor training, but they're from like 2020 and they're for the
Yeah.
wrong version of CMMC.
Yeah.
And they had a whole bunch of stuff that's just so outdated. You can't use them on current assessments. Um, so that's unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
glad,
mhm.
it's a big deal to have all of that. Um, I can't imagine, going into an assessment without any of that stuff. I'd be like, it would just be a mess. So, yeah,
You'll have your printed out assessment guide over here
man,
and like your
no.
notebook over here, just frantically trying to make it work.
I'm old and I write things a lot, but that would not be good. No, no, thanks.
So okay. So the next question is, so you've done some planning. When does the rest of the assessment team get picked?
Well, usually when we're doing planning and stuff, it's good to have a team picked pretty early so they can do logistical stuff. Um, I can assign um, practices and things like that, but travel, being able to do that several weeks before the assessment is good. Most of the time, they're not involved until like after the scoping call, but
Mhm.
I mean sometimes they're in the scoping call, but uh, for the most part, pretty early, so that you know we can get things situated.
I think if I remember correctly, the last, say half dozen assessments we've done, there's been at least some discussion of who we would like on the assessment team way early,
Yeah,
almost at the kickoff stage. And then as the weeks progress, we refine it. This person turns out they're
can
not
do it
available,
right,
right?
right.
But yeah, we actually do really think about that. And part of it's like who's the right person for the
Yeah.
client. If they're cloud uh, centric, then
Hmm.
we want to have somebody who's very comfortable with that technology. If we have multiple assessors that are specializing in some of the softer processes like change management, and they don't have technical so much, we need to build up a more balanced team.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And
um,
sometimes, like,
mhm.
even, we have some assessments where we don't have to go on site, but for the ones where we do, they're the right person to go on site and be there and communicate, directly with the client all day long. That's a big part of it, um, too. So, yeah, kind of getting a good balance is a big deal.
Yeah, uh, it's ironic because most of those physical requirements are level one.
Right, right,
So the the idea people have, they go, oh, CMMC level one, that's easy,
right,
right? You can have the junior person go do all the level one stuff. And in my opinion, the level one stuff can actually be some of the most complicated, the most important stuff, right? If you don't
right,
have those things, you are hacked, you are breached. And we don't want to have the junior person focusing on
right.
those.
'Cause
Um,
it's, things that clients overlook a lot. You know, even little things like escorting the assessor while they're there, you know, just having a brain malfunction and leaving somebody alone, can it's things people don't really worry about as much, sometimes because they think, oh, but yeah.
I so I um I'm laughing because I'm having this picture of a client who's so determined to pass that they want to shock and awe us. So we have our poor, assessor go on site, and they show up with like armed security guards, hoof, hoof, hoof. We're gonna
Yeah, yeah.
chase you
They'll do
around.
that, but they'll do that, and then they'll leave you alone in a room, It's like yeah.
Yes. Um, let's see. So during the actual assessment week, because most of the CMMC assessments take roughly 1 week, that's kind of the way that the DoD does it, and we're trying to follow that. What's life like during that week?
At first, it was, like, really stressful. Um, it just, I wasn't as comfortable, you have to do it a few times to get your your groove down and to feel comfortable. And even like joint assessments, I was like, joint surveillance, the first one with DibCAC, you're like, there's somebody over my shoulder. And so it was, a lot of pressure. And now, uh communicating with everyone is a lot easier, and it's stressful, but not like it was at first. So the stress is just getting everything done.
Um, how long are your days typically compared to the client's days? Because I think both days are pretty long, right? During the
Yeah,
assessment week.
yeah. Uh, Probably 10 hours ish, depending on like how many practices I have myself. Um, because a lot of times, I'm working with the client and trying to get if we're missing evidence and having to give them an evidence request and answering questions from the assessment team and the client and DibCAC too. Um, the communication part of it gets to be a lot. And then I've got to do all of my documentation review, to make sure that I'm prepared for everything I'm responsible for the next day. So yeah, it can be long days.
Um, so compared to your team members, the
Hmm.
assessment team members, what do you do extra?
Well, um, I'm responsible for like all of the deliverables um, from the beginning, from the assessment plan, doing the scoping call, making sure uh, everybody knows what they're going to be doing, their assigned practices. But then, I'm having to, at the end, I'm having to look at everybody's findings, go over them with them, uh, then take them to quality and go over them again, that kind of thing. Um, so the in brief, and the out brief, and the report. So a lot of written stuff. Thankfully,
Mhm.
we have a lot of that, to start from. Uh,
The processes and
right.
the templates that we
Yep.
have in house to do it, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That saves a ton of time. I cannot imagine starting with a blank page. So I would cry probably. Um, and possibly change careers. But yeah, a lot of compared to just to a regular team member, um, I have all of the practices that I'm assigned to do, but then basically managing everything the entire week, running all of the meetings, um, and that's from the beginning, all of the planning meetings and all of that, and then the assessment week. Sometimes there's changes in the schedule because we didn't get finished with stuff, or we got finished early, or somebody's not there, or so yeah.
Yeah, because we have to basically be 100%, right? And there's so
Yeah,
many
yeah.
moving pieces, so you have to be chasing down this one
Flexibility.
person who's trying to elude the assessment.
Yeah. And every now and then it doesn't happen as much, because we try to schedule things. If we have like two virtual rooms going, we'll try to schedule, access control and things like uh,
Yeah.
IR or something like
Mhm.
that at the same time. So, but
The
every now and then
audit, yeah.
we have a person that kind of goes back and forth. So sometimes we have to move things around a little bit just to be flexible to talk to everybody we need to.
So you kind of mentioned it, but one of my questions was, when you're working with a team of other assessors, do you still feel like you have personal responsibility for each of the assessment findings?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So we do review, and um, it may even be that there's something written in findings that I'm not understanding right. Something said in an interview or seen through screen share that when I'm reading what happened, I'm missing something. So
So, so you're reading the assessor's notes,
yes,
right? They're
yeah,
giving you detailed notes of what they saw, what they looked
they
at, the
read
tests that
right.
they had, right? And
Yep,
then you're making sure that that makes sense for the assessment objective or the practice.
yep.
Yeah. Um, so last couple questions. We, we have a thriving, that might be a little bit tongue in cheek, a thriving CCP ecosystem where there's several hundred certified CMMC professionals that have been trained. We also have a few CCAs, the certified CMMC assessors. So, and for, that training, what would you, if there's like, say, 3 or 5 things that you would recommend that people who are going to be a team member, so I'll ask about lead assessor later, but for team members, what do they really need to know? What training do they need to focus on to actually be functional as a team member?
Um, they need, a really good understanding of all of the practices for one thing, and what to look for. You have to be because clients are all different. You have to be pretty open-minded to alternative ways to meet a practice because you're not going to get the same thing every time. So, it's good. And I think there are assessors that are more technical um, than others. I think everybody has to have like a good, technical knowledge, but I think a good understanding, um, being able to figure out what meets the practice and what doesn't, and then being able to take really good detailed notes and to be able to uh, articulate, why they made a decision, um, on a certain practice.
Why they recommend that it's a good practice or not a good
Right.
practice, right?
Yep.
Definitely agree on that one. When I teach students, I make a point of saying your number one job is to take really good
Good
notes
note. Yep. For
during the
sure.
assessment. And if you don't, it doesn't matter if you're interpreting well or, if you
Right.
got everything else, if your notes are blank or
Yeah.
we can't figure out what you saw,
Hmm.
you will not be invited back
Right.
to the next assessment from whoever you're working for.
When I'm
Mhm.
finalizing things, what I'm thinking about is if this is submitted um, to DibCAC or whoever, I want them to be able to look at the findings and see, you know, if we did a screen share, exactly what we saw. If it was documentation, what document we looked at, so that they can really understand exactly what we did, and not feel like, what the heck, you know. I
They
would, yeah, just
they
to be
they
able to
skimmed
follow
it.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So in comparison, lead assessor, right, which maybe the CCA training is focused on being lead assessor. I know that the Cyber AB has talked about making another mandatory training
Yeah.
course for lead assessors. They haven't done it yet. What would you recommend training for a lead assessor be focused on?
Probably, not only having a good understanding of the practices and stuff, but being able to manage a team and an assessment. uh it's you're a team member, but you're also managing everything. So I think, we push the practices and the domains and the assessment objectives, but if you throw somebody in as a lead assessor that can't figure out how to, divvy up practices and schedule things, that would break my brain, if you're just thrown into that. So uh, it's probably not the first thing people would think of for training, but maybe even just these are the things you have to do, and it may sound easier than doing all of the practices and stuff, but it's a huge part of it, and um, it's not always the easiest thing in the world.
Stuff like, looking at your team members and going, okay, that person is really good at this domain.
Right.
This
Yep.
person's really good at that domain. Let's
Yeah.
assign it. But then you have to figure out, okay, now this person who's really good, they've got
Firewall
some
stuff.
they've got
Yeah.
they somehow have 80% of the practices to do, and that's too many.
Right.
So I need to figure
Yep.
out what this person can do.
I have my own little spreadsheet with like how many, assessment objectives everybody ends up having to divvy it up, because you kind of have to do it. It depends on how many hours people are available, and that kind of thing. So, you don't want to give somebody 75% of the practices when they only have, 30 hours. So yeah,
Right.
that kind of stuff.
The other thing that I and you alluded to it a little bit, that I think lead assessors need to really understand is what a good deliverable looks like.
Yeah.
For each of those things. What good assessment planning looks like, what good scoping looks like.
You don't want to turn in a mess. That would be not only just bad, it would be embarrassing.
And why the evidence planning process is so important in the very beginning, making sure that the customer understands we're going to need to see evidence from these specific systems.
Right.
Make sure you're ready for it.
Another thing you have to think about is sometimes when you get companies in and they're like, okay, this is what we have, and you look at it and you have to go, they're not ready for this, and you've got to be willing to say that. You don't want them going in doomed, from the get-go. If you look at an SSP and it's, 10 pages long, and um, they don't have anything categorized and stuff like that, you have to be willing to say you're not ready yet. You have more work to do.
And be willing to not get that follow-on work.
Yeah.
Right. If we turn them away, we're turning down money.
And they're probably going to somebody else when they,
And I've seen other assessment companies, they don't do a double check.
Right.
They'll just take money and fail companies. And I think that's not right.
That's messed up. Pretty messed up.
But all right. Anyways, I think this was super, super awesome. I appreciate your time, Jill. This is good information for somebody who wants to be an assessor, and for people trying to understand this CMMC process. So cool. Thank you.
Absolutely.